This is organized to celebrate 150 years of the birth of the Mahatma. It's a 2 days program, and our speakers, we have 2 speakers today. The inauguration will be by our Honorable Director, Professor P.G. Sitharam. And we will begin by a short prayer, Vaishnava Janako on flute by Tonaya Hoikya on the flute. Sorry, I think because of microphones opened at multiple ends, we could not actually, the prayer was disrupted. Tanaya is a campus resident, student of class 9 from a neighborhood school, Faculty High School in America, Guwahati. We have, she is the daughter of Professor Anupam Hoikya from the Department of Mathematics. Wishing her a bright future. We move on to the I can hear there's a lot of noise. Yeah. So I now invite Professor T.J. Sitaram to kindly inaugurate the program and deliver his inaugural speech. This seminar is actually a UGC initiative all across the country to celebrate 150 years of the birth of the Mahatma. The ideal of Sarvodaya for Gandhi was for social upliftment, economic emancipation, and moral resurrection of all, a liberated society, what he had aimed for. For the modern world, can this Gandhian ideal provide hope? Our speakers will particularly look at the practice of Sarvodaya in the modern world and how Gandhi's vision is still, if Gandhi's vision or how Gandhi's vision is still achievable to build a liberated society. This is how, for remembering the birth, for remembering Mahatma, to celebrate 150 years of his birth, we use this title, the birth, we use the title Sarvodaya, which means a universal uplift or progress of all. Gandhi had used it to name his translation unto this last John Ruskin's book. And from then on, this was one of his philosophical journeys, later taken up by Vinoba Bhave in the post-independence period. And this theory, which he constructed out of his own experience, he talked about politics of cooperation. So, Sarvodaya is the realization of the happiness and elevation of all. And for building the modern nation state of India, or rather, the modern nation state of India, our constitution still aims to achieve that. The country, while remembering the Mahatma, is organizing the symposiums in an effort to remember the ideals of the Mahatma. Gandhi had taken up, or rather, Sarvodaya has its roots in the Vedantic concept of the spiritual unity of existence and the Gita. The ideals of Sarvodaya opposes the concept of majoritarianism, concept of class racial struggle, and the principle of greatest good of the great numbers. So, how this idea, which Gandhi had began in the beginning of the early part of the 20th century, early part of the freedom struggle, is still what the country is thriving to achieve. We have speakers from across the country, and we have Christian Bertloff and Dominic Mating, who have been talking about, writing about the idea or how Gandhi's philosophy and its relevance in the modern world. Mr. Niketu Iralu, deeply influenced by Mahatma Gandhi, has used it in the hills of Nagaland for bringing down intra-ethnic feuds. And it is one of the examples, or rather, his belief on honest dialogue and how actually reason, it was what Gandhi was trying to call about moral upliftment, that it can be achieved. There is hope, but it has to be designed, resurrected way that we can apply it for the welfare of human society, and it's relevant even to the modern world. We will come back we are here in a short while we might try playing Tanaya's video once again, the little prayer that we want to say, Vaishnava Janapo. But a little more time when our Honorable Director is coming in. Please be with us. Yes, I'm sorry for this delay, but that our director received a very emergency phone call regarding a convocation from the PM's office, from the Prime Minister's office, and he had to attend to the phone call. He is coming in a short while. Please bear with us. It was unseen, unforeseen. He had joined, but because of this phone call, he had to attend to the phone call, and a delay happened. Uh, his inaugural speech will begin the moment immediately he joins. He's joining in a few seconds.
मेरे को से ये तो प्रेम नहीं करना चाहिए ना अभी आदमी बैठा
Welcome, Professor T.J. Sitaram. Our Honorable Director, sir, is here with us to inaugurate the symposium.
Okay.
I now request Professor Sitaram to please kindly deliver his inaugural speech and inaugurate the symposium. Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, apologies for being late. I had a emergency phone call. So very, very good afternoon to all of you. So this is a Sarvodaya, the Gandhian ideal, the symposium. And today, this time we have to do this online. And Humanities and Social Science Department of IIT Guwahati is holding this event for 2 days. Sarvodaya, the Gandhian ideal, 14th and 15th of September 2020. Let me formally inaugurate this program, and I also welcome Dr. Dominic, I think, Department of Civil Education from University of Berlin, and is also former president of the Gandhi Information Center, Berlin, and Sarvodaya and Ruskin Tolstoy Gandhi. And also there is a talk by Niketu Iralu, Kohima, Nagaland. So, and tomorrow also there are many talks by our colleagues at IIT Guwahati. As you all know, the father of our nation, Mahatma, called to be, was born on October 2nd of 1869, and we celebrate Gandhi Jayanti every year as a national holiday to commemorate the birth of Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi, and who in fact passed away on January 30th, 1948, only witnessed a year or even less than a year of our independence. His non-violence or satyagraha continues to influence all the leaders and movements, not only in India, across the world. Today, the world is characterized by many intolerable inequalities, both between nations and within nations. And millions of our fellow human beings die. Besides, the pandemic has taken away a lot of our people. Over 1 billion people live less than, very a meager sum every day to survive. There is enough for every man's need, as Mahatma Gandhi said, but not for every man's greed. So today, it's a very important day when we are celebrating the Sarvodaya, the Gandhian Ideal Workshop inauguration, and also remember the works of Mahatma Gandhi, which is so important not only for us, for the whole world. Today, the path and means used by Mahatma Gandhi has become much more relevant, not just in India, but elsewhere in the world, where people have been suppressed or injustice has been institutionalized. So, and also what is important, that is the October 2nd is observed by the United Nations as the International Day of Non-Violence, that aims to disseminate his philosophy, principle, and belief in non-violence through proper education and public awareness. Mahatma Gandhi is a man who did what he said and led an exemplary, transparent life. His gentle approach to life is a testament to the fact that his strength does not equal the physical capacity. His life story is very, very unique. He spent a lot of time in South Africa, and then as well as England, and he is really, even today, his ideals and principles are very relevant. So though he passed away in 1948, very few months after our independence, his philosophy has guided this young nation during its very formative years, and even today it is very relevant. His philosophy of non-violence, temperance, and simple living is the one which needs to be highlighted. Mahatma Gandhi and his values have become today's society's sort of ideal to follow, and particularly when our society is facing with a lot of social evils, poverty, corruption, terrorism, and violence all over the world. Gandhi became the ideal hero for all of us and thousands around the world. And if you look at carefully, the main pillars of Gandhi's philosophy were non-violence, tolerance of others, respect for all religions, and a simple life. So we can see that the truth of that is coming after 70 years. The whole world is realizing India has really adopted the Gandhian philosophy in their, not only in their followings, but in their blood. So he represents a figure of unique integrity, consistency, and humanity. Non-violence is elementary and indispensable condition for the materialization of these noble values. I don't want to go on when very distinguished people who worked on his life history for a very long time are also speaking today. So I take this opportunity to thank the speakers for accepting IIT Guwahati invitation to deliver the talk on Mahatma, and I also am very happy to inaugurate this webinar, which has to be done online because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Otherwise, we would have loved to have you on campus. And I hope that this message of Mahatma comes through loud and clear through this webinar, Sarvodaya, the Gandhian idea. So I thank everyone who really worked hard to make this program a very fruitful one. I hope all the participants will like the messages and messages that will be delivered by our distinguished speakers. And with this, I thank the organizers to give me this opportunity to be with you and say a few words and also inaugurate this workshop. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, Professor Sitaram. It was the symposium will now begin with our first speakers, Christian Bartlov, educational and political scientist. He is president of the Society Gandhi Information Center, Research and Education for Non-Violence, Berlin, Germany. Author of articles and books on Gandhi and Tolstoy, Letter to a Hindu, Mahatma Gandhi's friend in South Africa with Dr. Isa Sarid, Harman Kallenbach, Mahatma Gandhi's friend in South Africa, The Breath of My Life, the correspondence of Mahatma Gandhi, author of 21 exhibitions on the history of nonviolent resistance, Thoreau, Tolstoy, Gandhi. And we have with him Dominic Mating, lecturer in history of political ideas and civic education, Freie University of Berlin. He is board member of the Gandhi Information Center, Education and Research for Nonviolence, Berlin. I apologize to both the speakers that we had to keep them waiting, but it was very unavoidable, or rather a very unforeseen situation where our director had to attend to the phone call. So I will now request Dominic Mating and Christian Bertloff to come in to deliver the talk. Rubul Gogoi, please start their presentation from our end. Yeah, Dominic, can you hear me? Dr. Dominic Mating.
Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you for the introduction and the kind invitation. Can you hear me?
Yes. Today it's a disturbance. The line is not very good, but I think you have to bear with it. This is how his online things are happening.
Yes,
Yeah. Please begin. And I'm sorry for the time.
Don't worry.
No problem.
Wonderful that you are doing this conference. High time. Yes.
Well-being of each and every. And Gandhi is not
created a new term for the socioeconomic basis of non-violent resistance, but also assigned a new meaning to the term Orient, which originally means where the sun rises fully. This prophetic message of the East, this message of the Orient, is linked with the emancipation of those affected and victimized by slavery and war. The term Orient has analogues for many languages. For instance, the French term Levant, rising, or the Russian term Vostok, sunrise. The Levant is an approximate historical geographical term referring to a large area in the eastern Mediterranean region of Western Asia. The term entered English in the late 15th century from French. It derives from the Italian levante, meaning rising, or rising of the sun in the east, and is broadly equivalent to the Arabic term al-Mashriq, meaning the eastern place where the sun rises. The opposite term, Occident, derives from the Latin word Occident, meaning where the sun sets. For Gandhi, Sarvodaya means the basis for Swadeshi, meaning self-reliant.
Swadeshi carries a great and profound meaning. It does not mean merely the use of what is produced in one's own country. That meaning is certainly there in Swadeshi. But there is another meaning implied in it, which is far greater and much more important. Swadeshi means reliance on our own strength. We should also know what we mean by reliance on our own strength. Our strength means the strength of our body, our mind, and our soul. From among these, on which should we depend? The answer is brief. The soul is supreme. Therefore, soul force is the foundation on which man must build. Passive resistance, or satyagraha, is a mode of fighting which demands such force. That, then, is the only real key to success for healing.
The Swadeshi movement was a part of the Indian independence movement and the development of the Indian national. The movement started in 1905 against the partition of Bengal. It was one of the most successful movements against British rule, primarily organized and led by Aurobindo Ghosh, Lokmanya Tilak, and Lala Lajpat Rai. Swadeshi was a key focus of Mahatma Gandhi, who described it as the soul of Swaraj, self-rule. The movement from Bengal ended in 1911. The word Swadeshi is a conjunction of two Sanskrit words, Swa and Desh, meaning self and home. Swadeshi as an adjective means of one's own home. In the second half of the 19th century, the first Swadeshi movement was developed by Dadabhai Naoroji, Gopal Krishna Gokhale, Mahadev Ranade, and Lokmanya Tilak. By studying the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, we found out that the founding of his first settlement project, Phoenix at London, near Durban, South Africa, with the international printing press for Indian, was not only inspired by John Ruskin's Unto This Last, but also by the Unangi Institute of John and Nikotela Dube in the tradition of Booker T. Washington. It was as early as 1903 that Mahatma Gandhi wrote about Booker T. Washington after he had learned about him from an article by Romain Rolland written in the journal East and West, published in Bombay on 10 September.
Booker, as he was known when yet a slave, was born about the year 1858, the exact date being unknown to him. His lot, says Mr. Rolland, was the average one. He did not fall under the tyranny of one of those brutes so forcibly depicted in Mrs. Beecher Stowe's novel. Yet even those masters who were kind to their slaves treated them like inferior beings, a kind of useful cattle which had to be well fed if they were to work well, and which had no need of comforts they would be unable to appreciate. When freedom for the slaves was proclaimed, Mr. Booker's family left the plantations and went to town. He had a very great desire, illiterate though he was, to learn and educate himself. He therefore set about learning the rudiments of the English language and attended a night school. Harvard University has honored him with the degree of Master of Arts. In traveling through Europe, he has drawn crowds of appreciative audiences. A life such as this teaches a lesson to all of us. If it is one full of honors, the honors have been well earned after patient toil and suffering. Mr. Washington might have chosen another career, which he might have shown perhaps better in the estimation of some, but he chose first of all to raise his people, to qualify them for the great task lying before them. With himself, he has raised his own countrymen also immeasurably, and set to them, as indeed to all of us who care to study his life, an example worthy to be followed. One word to our own countrymen: we have done. We have in our midst in India men who have devoted their lives to the service of their country, but we make bold to say that the life of our hero would perhaps rank higher than that of any British Indian, for the simple reason that we have a very great past and ancient civilization. What therefore may be, and is undoubtedly natural in us, is a very great merit in Booker Washington. Be that, however, as it may be, a contemplation of lives like this cannot fail to do good.
The Indian lawyer in South Africa, M.K. Gandhi, and John Magalivale and Philadelphia shared an appreciation of Washington's educational ideal. That is, vocational training, because John Dewey had experienced these ideals in practice and firsthand at Oberlin College, Ohio. Founded by Lewis Adams, a former slave, and George W. Campbell, a former slave holder, Tuskegee Institute was established initially as the Tuskegee Normal School for colored teachers, but its syllabi also include practical farming skills and vocational training in various trades found in the region of Alabama and the rural South. The Institute thereby closely followed Washington's founding ideal of self-reliance. The sugar plantation owner, Marshall Campbell, introduced Gandhi and Dewey in the year 1905, 1 year after the founding of the Institute.
I'm sorry, I think the Teams audio is disrupted for some reason.
YouTube is.
The transmission works fine on YouTube.
Yes, it works fine in YouTube. It's very smooth there. But I don't know, Dominic, if you're online, will you take over? Somehow this is not happening. We are trying to play the video, but the one you sent us.
Would you like me to share the video?
We can try that, but again, I think it is coming back. People are saying it's audible now.
Okay. In terms of journalism, gardening,
is it audible in your end, Dominic?
Yes, it is audible now.
Okay, fine, yeah.
Mr. Gandhi is the real proprietor of Indian politics, from which no profits are made and to which he has devoted the whole of his savings. There are 2 Englishmen associated with him that work, and they and several Indians have, for the sake of the paper, reduced themselves to voluntary pauperism. The paper is being run on Tolstoy's and Ruskin's dimes. Its publicly declared mission is to bring the 2 communities together and become an educative medium for the Indian community.
In the Phoenix Trust Deed of 1912, printed in Indian Opinion, it is explicitly mentioned that the majority of settlers joined the settlement to follow and promote the ideals set forth by Tolstoy, Ruskin, and their wives. In the year 1908, as basic information on patriots, Gandhi published a 9-part Gujarati paraphrase of John Ruskin's Untitled Chapter, 4 essays in the principle of political.
Please mute except the speakers.
New name of this new concept, Sarvodaya. These 9 parts were later translated into English. We now quote Gandhi in his own words from his preface and his conclusion.
People in the West generally hold that it is man's duty to promote happiness, prosperity of the greatest number. Happiness is taken to mean material happiness exclusively, that is, economic prosperity. If, in the pursuit of this happiness, moral laws are violated, it does not matter much. Again, as the object is the happiness of the greatest number, people in the West do not believe it to be wrong if it is secured at the cost of the minority. The consequences of this attitude are in evidence in Western countries. The exclusive quest for the physical and material happiness of the majority has no sanction in divine law. In fact, some thoughtful persons in the West have pointed out that it is contrary to divine law to pursue happiness in violation of moral principles. The late John Ruskin was foremost among these. He was an Englishman of great learning. He has written numerous books on art and crafts. He has also written a great deal on ethical questions. One of these books, a small one, Ruskin himself believed to be his best. It is read widely wherever English is spoken. In the book, he has effectively countered these arguments and shown that the well-being of the people at large consists in conforming to the moral law. We in India are much given nowadays to imitation of the West. We do grant that it is necessary to imitate the West in certain respects. At the same time, there is no doubt that many Western ideas are wrong. It will be admitted on all hands that what is bad must be eschewed. The condition of Indians in South Africa is pitiable. We go out to distant lands to make money. We are so taken up with this that we become oblivious of morality and of God. We become engrossed in the pursuit of self-interest. In the sequel, we find that going abroad does us more harm than good, or does not profit us as much as it ought to. All religions presuppose the moral law, but even if we disregard religion as such, its observance is necessary on grounds of common sense also. Our happiness consists in observing it. This is what John Ruskin has established. He has opened the eyes of the Western people to this. And today we see a large number of Europeans modeling their conduct on his teaching. In order that Indians may profit by his ideas, we have decided to present extracts from his book in a manner intelligible to Indians who do not know English. Socrates gave us some idea of man's duty. He practiced his precepts. It can be argued that Ruskin's ideas are an elaboration of Socrates. Ruskin has described vividly how one who wants to live by Socrates' ideas should acquit himself in the different vocations. The summary of his work, which we offer here, is not really a translation. If we translated it, the common reader might be unable to follow some of the biblical allusions, etc. We present, therefore, only the substance of Ruskin's work. We do not even explain what the title of the book means, for it can be understood only by a person who has read the Bible in English. But since the object which the book works towards is the welfare of all, that is, the advancement of all, and not merely of the greatest number, we have entitled these articles Sarvodaya. What Ruskin wrote for his countrymen, the British, is 1,000 times more applicable to Indians. New ideas are spreading in India. The advent of a new spirit among the young who have received Western education is of course to be welcomed, but the outcome will be beneficial only if that spirit is canalized properly. If it is not, it is bound to be harmful. From one side we hear the cry for Swarajya, from another for the quick accumulation of wealth by setting up factories like those in Britain. Our people hardly understand what Swarajya means. America, France, and England are all great states, but there is no reason to think that they are really happy. Real Swarajya consists in restraint. He alone is capable of this who leads a moral life, does not cheat anyone, does not forsake truth, and does his duty to his parents, his wife, his children, his servant, and his neighbors. Such a man will enjoy Swarajya wherever he may happen to live. We ought to be careful, therefore, not to be hasty and thoughtlessly to imitate the people of the West. Just as we cannot achieve real Swarajya by following the path of evil, that is, by killing the British, so also will it not be possible for us to achieve it by establishing big factories in India. Accumulation of gold and silver will not bring Swarajya. This has been convincingly proved by Ruskin. But Swarajya is to be achieved by righteous means. It must be real Swarajya. It cannot be achieved by violent methods or by setting up factories. We must have industry, but of the right kind. India was once looked upon as a golden land because Indians then were people of sterling worth. The land is still the same, but the people have changed, and that is why it has become irrelevant. to transform it into a golden land again, we must transmute ourselves into gold by leading a life of virtue. The philosopher's stone, which can bring this about, consists of 2 syllables, satya. If therefore every Indian makes it a point to follow truth always, India will achieve Swarajya as a matter of course. This is the substance of Ruskin's book. We can find the doctrine of Satyagraha in the writings of Ruskin and Thoreau. Whilst the views expressed in Swaraj are held by me, I have but endeavored humbly to follow Tolstoy, Ruskin, Thoreau, Emerson, and other writers, besides the masters of Indian philosophy. Tolstoy has been one of my teachers for a number of years.
In the 1920s, when Gandhi created the movement of the spinning charkha, or homespun cotton yarn, Gandhi, before the concept Sarvodaya had been woven into an all-embracing constructive program with the support of the Kumarhatas and Vinoba, Gandhi recollected Bondarev and Tolstoy's concept of bread in detail, compared bread labor with the ancient Indian notion of sacrifice. Yajna.
Jesus was a carpenter. He never used his intellect to earn his livelihood. We do not know how much manual work Buddha did before he attained wisdom. Yes, we know this much, that he did not propagate religion for securing his livelihood. He lived on charity that could not militate against the duty of labor. A roving ascetic has to do a lot of manual work. Now to come to Tolstoy. What his wife has said is true, but it is not the whole truth. After the change in his outlook, Tolstoy never took for himself the income from his books. Although he had property worth millions, he lived like a guest in his own house. After the attainment of wisdom, he worked 8 hours a day and earned his wages. Sometimes he worked in the field, and sometimes he made shoes at home. Although he did not earn much by doing such work, still he earned enough to feed himself. Tolstoy strove hard to practice what he preached. This was characteristic of him. The sum and substance of all this discussion is that the duty which the ancients observed themselves and which the majority in the world discharges even today has been presented to the world in an explicit manner by him. In fact, this doctrine was not Tolstoy's original idea. It was thought of by a great Russian writer by name Bondarev. Tolstoy endorsed it and proclaimed it to the world. The ashram holds that every man and woman must work in order to live. This principle came home to me upon reading one of Tolstoy's essays. Referring to the Russian writer Bondarev, Tolstoy observes that his discovery of the vital importance of bread labor is one of the most remarkable discoveries of modern times. The idea is that every healthy individual must labor enough for his food, and his intellectual faculties must be exercised not in order to obtain a living or amass a fortune, but only in the service of mankind. If this principle is observed everywhere, all men would be equal, none would starve, and the world would be saved from many a sin. It is possible that this golden rule will never be observed by the whole world. Millions observe it in spite of themselves without understanding. But their mind is working in a contrary direction, so that they are unhappy themselves, and their labor is not as fruitful as it should be. This state of things serves as an incentive to those who understand and seek to practice the rule. By rendering a willing obedience to it, they enjoy good health, as well as perfect peace, and develop their capacity for service. Tolstoy made a deep impression on my mind. And even in South Africa, I began to observe the rule to the best of my ability. And ever since the ashram was founded, bread labor has been perhaps its most characteristic feature. In my opinion, the same principle has been set forth in the 3rd chapter of the Gita. I do not go so far as to say that the word yajna, sacrifice, means body labor. But when the Gita says that rain comes from sacrifice, I think it indicates the necessity of bodily labor. The residue of sacrifice is the bread that we have won in the sweat of our brow. Laboring enough for one's food has been classed in the Gita as a yajna. Whoever eats more than is enough for sustaining the body is a thief. For most of us hardly perform labor enough to maintain themselves. I believe that a man has no right to receive anything more than his keep, and that everyone who labors is entitled to a living wage. This does not rule out the division of labor. The manufacture of everything needed to satisfy essential human wants involves bodily labor, so that labor in all essential occupations counts as bread labor. In an institution where body labor plays a prominent part, there are few servants. Drawing water, splitting firewood, cleaning and filling lamps with oil, sanitary service, sweeping the roads and houses, washing one's clothes, cooking, all these tasks must always be performed. Besides this, there are various activities carried on in the ashram as a result of and in order to help fulfillment of the observances, such as agriculture, dairying, weaving, carpentry, tanning, and the like, which must be attended to by many members of the ashram. All these activities may be deemed sufficient for keeping the observance of bread labor. But another essential feature of yajna, sacrifice, is the idea of serving others. And the ashram will perhaps be found wanting from this latter standpoint. The ashram ideal is to live to serve. In such an institution, there is no room for idleness or shirking duty, and everything should be done with right goodwill. If this were actually the case, the ashram's ministry would be more fruitful than it is. But we are still very far from such a happy condition. Therefore, although in a sense every activity in the ashram is of the nature of yajna, it is compulsory for all to spin for at least 1 hour in the name of God, incarnated as the poor. Daridra Narayana.
During these hard times of a global pandemic, because of the lethal virus, we should honor the social work of Mahatma Gandhi, who cared for his fellow citizens during the plague. Let us finally share the lesson he drew from his history.
During a plague epidemic, the physician must not run away from his task, but instead attend to the patients, even at the risk of infection. The priest must lead people from error to truth, even if they should kill him for it. The lawyer must ensure, even at the cost of his life, that justice prevails.
Oh, schön Musik. Unmuted. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for your attention. We transferred the file of the text for you in the chat, and also we will upload this video on YouTube, our channel, YouTube channel C. Bartolf. And we try to summarize the influence on Mahatma Gandhi. One influence was the Booker T. Washington's Tuskegee Institute and John and Nokotela Dubel's Olange Institute, which were like a role model for Gandhi's Phoenix settlement. Then, of course, John Ruskin and his Until This Last. And the third was Leo Tolstoy and Bondarev as writers Red Labor on. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you from my side as well. And for your information, we have also pasted the link to our John Ruskin exhibition in the chat. If you would like some further information, please follow us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's particularly a bad day as far as the internet connections are concerned. I'm not at all using my video, but still I seem to lose connection often, and I think there are, disruptions often. But still, you have sent us enough material which we could read, as you sent us the PDF file, and I will open the talk for discussion. So few members from the department who are here with us, if you have questions to Mr. Bartolf and Dr. Dominic Maitling, I think they'd be happy to answer. So I would like to open this up for question and answers, for questions.
Mm-hmm. Easy for you. You're also welcome to post your questions in the chat. We can read them.
Yeah, there was a huge noise. I'm sorry for that.
Yes, that's all right.
It's Prabhu here. Am I audible?
Schön. Das ist das Wichtigste, dass wir einigermaßen sind.
Professor Sukanya, I have a query. If I'm allowed to, can I ask?
Yes, please.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, my phone, my microphone is muted. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Of course, thank you so much for your presentation. In between, there are lots of hiccups, but still, we were able to get the gist of what you wanted us to know. Of course, I just have an observation. Would like to get your comments on that one. See, Gandhi is supposedly, all said and done, is supposedly quite a practical person. Fine, but at the same time, he was trying to preach the ideals of non-violence. Given this context, in the present day context, do you think that still you'll be holding on to that similar opinion? Thank you.
Yes, I think he would, and he would also expect us to follow these ideas, because there is no Gandhism reasonable. It's just following truth on the path of nonviolence. And what we discovered while researching in the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, which you find in the Gandhi Heritage Portal in the most authentic version. So then we discovered that there is an inseparable connection between Sarvodaya as the basis and the experience of different vocations as the basis for fearlessness and all the virtues which you need for nonviolent resistance. That is why Gandhi first wrote about Socrates as the role model for fearlessness, and then he turned to Ruskin. So he paraphrased Ruskin's Unto This Last into Gujarati language, and it was like giving an example for Satyagraha. It was in the beginning of Satyagraha, 1908, and Socrates was the first role model. And then he turned to Ruskin and said, this is the basis for non-violent resistance. It is Sarvodaya, the welfare of all, the advancement of all, the uplift of all. And he translated it into English with the words universal dawn.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you, Professor.
Yes, if I yeah, any more questions? If I might take the liberty of, I had two of them. One is about the relevance, or rather, why do you think Gandhi's philosophy is talked about less, or rather is practiced less even in modern India? Any observation particularly from your side?
Well, I would say one reason might be the following. It is very important to go back to the sources, what Gandhi wrote himself, what he himself wrote in the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi. And then you will see the universal significance again. And if young people are now doing research on their own, individual research, group research, this will be the best peace education, you know. And it's so good that now you made available in India the collected works of Mahatma Gandhi, all the key works of Gandhi, and also very important basic information on the Gandhi Heritage Portal. And that's the reason why we we were able to do this research and to understand the four key concepts of Gandhi from a new perspective. Sarvodaya is one, Satyagraha, of course, but then also Swadeshi and Swaraj. And all these four key concepts have a universal meaning for the world, not just for India. So it's good to rediscover Gandhi now, but by going back to the roots, to the writings, and to the different vocations of Gandhi as a journalist, as a social worker, as a philosopher, and of course, as a great lawyer and advocate for the human rights, for the emancipation of the Indian community in South Africa. That's the reason why I think there will be a renaissance of Gandhi. There has been a renaissance of Gandhi in India, and it will be even more when you draw the lessons from the writings of Gandhi, because Gandhi was a great author, a great writer too, in addition to his resistance campaigns and his constructive program. Because what we were speaking about, Sarvodaya, the concept, was the basis for the constructive program which was elaborated by the Kumarappas and Vinoba Bhave, and which had so much impact. And this was the focus of Gandhi during the last phase of his life, connected and combined with the removal of untouchability and the social reform.
Yes, that is what I think, as you say, it will be much something to take away from the seminar, talking about the Renaissance, the revisiting, the revivalism of Gandhian philosophy, which should fit in the new world order.
Yes. With ecological messages nowadays in the times of climate change.
Yes.
And decentralized concepts, decentralized village republics with self-sufficient energy production. This might be an interesting concept for the future of the World Federation.
Yes, but I think in Indian context, or rather in many democracies in the world, where there is politics of power, something like Sarvodaya, practice of it might come in the way. Do you think so?
Well, nationalism is an obstacle. That's so true. There should be even on the international system level, there should be a new concept of a world federation of equal members, a decentralized structure. And now with the modern technologies, the soft energy production technologies, we have much more chances, but also the science shall not be structured too much in a hierarchical sense. But there should be an encouragement of grassroots research with new results, because we are all dependent on new results and reforms for the survival of mankind. We are all in one world, and Gandhi was advocating one world, you know. So we are all following our moral duty to find solutions or urge not just the global pandemic we are all contemporaries of, but also, you know, it's most important to bring about a new change in our political structures and in the structures of social policies, not to mention economics, of course. So we have to do a lot.
Yes, thank you so much. And with all the information that you have enriched us with, I'm sure our listeners, our viewers will connect with you all once again. It was great listening to you, both of you, connecting to both of you, and hope when the situation improves, when you come to India again, you will pay us a visit, and it will be possible for us to, So you're welcome. Let us know in your next visit to India. Keep in your itinerary a visit to the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, IIT Guwahati. So, yes, thank you so much once again.
For your precious conference. Thank you very much.
All the best for the rest of the day and tomorrow, of course.
Thank you so much. Please be with us. Yeah, our next speaker is coming in. Yeah. For the Niketu Iralu is coming in a little while. Yes, Niketu Iralu has come in, and as you know that we are very few of us, I think, left behind. But it will be it's a privilege to have you serve with us. And Niketu Iralu, the man who is trying to rewrite the destiny of the Nagas. And as Bartloff and Dominic Maithing just ended the talk with, that it is ecological too. And Niketu Iralu have not been only bringing in peace to the hills, making peace suddenly become a possible reality, but he has also brought the ecology back by starting a massive replantation campaign when he saw that the Naga hills had become or had fallen prey to deforestation. So as a result of his efforts, more than 2/3 of the forest now are under the management of the villagers. So it's an effort which is very true to the Sarvodaya ideal. So let us now listen to the talk by Niketu Iralu.
Okay. Well, I'm problem. Thank you for thinking I can contribute something. If you do not catch what I'm saying, you'll be very angry with me. Okay, I'll start. Sarvodaya, the Gandhian ideal. The Gandhian ideal became an international model all around after the implementation of its core values and ideas through experiments made by Mahatma Gandhi. Various problems in India were solved by Gandhi's method, and it was proved that Gandhian discussion of the ideal, the experiments made by Gandhi to prove its efficacy, its good points as well as its limitations, it can the way Gandhi and his fellow workers did, and so on, is one thing. Implementing the same core values in faith and defiance, because failure to do so will result in uncontrollable disaster in situations like Nagaland, is another. Both are important. Together, they contribute towards making Gandhian values the values for society. I do not know much more than what I read in the book, My Experiment with Truth by Gandhi. When I went in 1955 to study in Madras Christian College in Pambaram, and also in some articles, I became convinced, though just a very ordinary person, meant to understand the Gandhian values at a deeper level and live them to the best of my ability, to be the change you want to see in the world as Gandhi, instead of continuing to be a part of the problem, being irresponsible and blaming others. I would like to share here the first experiment with truth while I was still a student at college. One, I sold college property to solve my immediate problem, for which my other hostelers suffered. I went and told the warden and apologized for the selfishness in what I did. I was afraid he would laugh at me. Instead of laughing at me, he said, "Thank you for your, keep it up." That was the first step. It inspired me, what he said, that I could do something. Then number two, a Nepali family in Kohima, the father he worked in the hospital where my father was a doctor. My father was his boss, but this Nepali family, because they ran a shop of supplies, they were richer than our family. And I felt that my father's salary very quickly disappeared every month into that shop. I apologized to him by writing a letter from college, saying that I was sorry I wished harm and destruction to come to his family, done by others would be. But I wished that. And I said, he asked him to forgive me. Then the third. I apologized to my father, who was retired, and he was a political prisoner in Inaugural. I wrote to him telling the truth about the cases I had cheated him and the things I had done for which I was ashamed as a son. I said, "Please forgive me. I want you to know the truth about me to start with, because I wanted to do something with my life that will bring change." My father wrote back and said, "I know what my children, some of them at that time, feel about the way I have treated your mother? Because mother often cried in the kitchen because of the shortage of money in our family. And he said, I promise to speak differently. And he thanked me again, he thanked me for my courage and honesty, as you said. These first steps I took did not change Nagaland or India, of course, but started to being the change you want to see in the world means obeying the still small voice, as Gandhi said. It dealt with my selfishness, my ego, fear, and hate as an individual young man. And also I understood the eternal battle between good and evil. This was most important to me in finding the path to the future. Later, when I worked in different parts of India, I apologized in a public meeting in Madras for hating the people of India, and also to a trade union leader in Mumbai for the same thing. Those of us who do not want violence and its consequences as to start with first wherever we were part of the disease and the problem. In faith and belief, I decided to start to walk the Gandhi road in my return to Nagaland and North India. I saw that first needed to acknowledge where my family and tribe been wrong and caused distrust and resentment in the other tribe. This was the first step toward adopting Gandhian principles of truth and non-violence in the conflict-ridden situation of Nagaland. Others began to see they could trust me. And this resulted in some like-minded people beginning to come together to help one another towards doing what needed to be done. I would like to end by quoting here St. Francis of Assisi to say on the matter. He said, quote, start by doing what is necessary, then do what is possible, and follow. I would like to end here in discussions and questions that may follow of the beginnings we have made in Nagaland situation. Thank you. I hope you heard some of the things I said. Did it come through?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
We can hear you. Can you hear us, sir?
I can hear you.
Okay, okay. So now I will request members to either type or ask questions, which I can pass on to Mr. Iralu.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, anybody with questions? Yes, I think I will take the liberty of asking you, sir, about the present situation after all these years of what the state has achieved as far as peace and reconciliation is concerned. What do you think is the future of the hills as far as peace and reconciliation is concerned?
what we have started has just made a very small beginning, but we have created so much problems. We are not thinking fast enough to make things work. Some of us committed to continue healing the wounds and the hurts with force to another. And I think that has to bring about a change in our relationship, or the division inside our society will increase. Some of us are committed to see that whatever settlement comes, only whatever way, instead of blaming others for all the things we have done, we need to get back to hitting wrong we have done to one another. And this has begun to show results in small ways, where we have had killings we have done to one another, and enabled both sides to kill one another by those who killed others apologizing for what they had done for the sake of tomorrow's children. And I think that's what will depend very much on this kind of change spreading in our society. Because not only just leaders can solve problems. The ordinary people have to also produce a new thinking and living. That's what I have to say.
Yes. It's very important for us because of the reason that, in fact, the whole of Northeast India, the fact and the issue that you have sort of, or rather for the whole world, in fact, I think building up social capital, I think that is ultimately important, and in the sense of, mainly for peace and conflict resolution. And we have seen results coming with your efforts. Though you say that it is a very small beginning, I think those of us who have sort of experienced it, though it is small, if we feel it is small, if we have achieved in certain ways, I think, milestones, in the sense that you could actually stop this ethnic feuds, or whatever you call them, the gang feuds across the hills. Now that is what is, I think, a marvelous achievement, as far as people from this region who have actually gone through all this type of, we can say about it. So though in your own measurement you call it a small achievement, I think that without your intervention in the way that you have done, I think it would have been still a very different story for us here.
Well, thank you for your thank you for a general positive assessment. What we are now doing is that the different communities of Northeast India with different aspirations can easily destroy one another if we don't think of creating a wider stability together. So we are building a teamwork, a network between Nagaland, Manipur, Karbi Anglong, and further into Assam, Bodoland, Meghalaya, Mizoram, and then beyond to Nepal, the Tibetans, and Ladakh, because they all share the same fears and insecurity. So we want to see that we become a bridge of healing and creating of understanding among ourselves, so that we solve our problems, not be used by others for the bigger agenda. But this is easy to produce real results.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. Another question that I wanted to ask about was, how much do you think that ecology, or rather our surroundings, also matter in the practice of certain type of philosophies or ideas. Like in case of Gandhi's, how the environment was brought in your efforts too, how you have actually also made it a part of your whole movement, the reforestation of the ravaged hills.
Yeah.
So is that an integral part, or rather, is that important in also, moral upliftment of human beings?
I think absolutely. I think that it has to start with the human beings first. Otherwise, the forest, the earth, and the animals no chance. We have to bring change in human beings on the big scale, and the change that is real, especially changing the hate and distrust this thing has. We must see that do not allow mass killing fields as happening in different parts of the world, and that is possible. If you can create a right human relationship, reduce the hatred and selfishness, if it's possible, then we will also be able to save the forest and environment. So as to try to talk about ideas about the environmental safety, whereas we are selfish as before, nothing will happen.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Sorry for all the connectivity issues that we had. Today was a particularly bad day, in fact, as far as internet connectivity is concerned. All throughout the program, we suffered miserably for it, actually. And but still, we could bring you in, and it was a privilege getting connected to you and listening to you. And we hope in the future too we get this opportunity. And thank you so much. And
Thank you.
yes, thank you so much.
Is Professor Sukanya or Archana Barwa?
Professor Sukanya.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank
Hang up now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks all of you for at least pulling up to this extent with all the miseries that we had right from the beginning of. Yeah, it is a particularly bad day for connectivity. Even from the director's office till here, connectivity was very poor. As you can see, the video was very badly that was disrupted. Mei Ting had sent a very good quality, but thankfully they had sent it to us earlier, which we tried playing but had the same issues. Do not know all that we had gone through. But anyway, please do join us tomorrow at 2. We have Professor Alaka Sharma from USTM. We have Alaka Sharma Desai from the USTM. We have Professor Archana Barwa from HSS and Dr. Pani Saike also. We want to, as Iralu has said, that the dialogue, or rather, we should try to build up the discourse. And as Mei-Ting and Bartolov had left us, that there has to be a sort of revival or renaissance as far as Gandhian thought and philosophy is concerned. And I think that is precisely the effort that is also the government is making. Let us see if we can do it, and hope that it will be, in fact, it will be favorable, and it will benefit society. So, yeah, thanks to all of you. Please do join us tomorrow at 2. Thank you. We do not have an inauguration tomorrow, so we will not have those hitches. Thank you.
Thank you, Sukanna.